Your movie is really funny. It's really funny. By myself, laughing out loud hysterically today.
Am I racist?
Am I racist?
Am I racist? Am I racist?
Am I racist? Am I racist?
Am I racist?
Am I racist?
Am I racist?
Am I racist?
Am I racist?
Am I racist?
Am I racist?
Am I racist?
Am I racist?
I laughed like through, I would say 99% of it. It was hilarious.
It's so funny.
It's a great documentary. It's hilarious.
That movie was freaking hilarious.
I thought that this movie was really funny.
Am I Racist is a Borat style, funny, dark funny, not in the racist way dark, dark, funny movie.
Turned out to be a lot funnier than I expected it to be.
The comedy comes from the utter ridiculousness that these people engage in because they believe these things.
It was funny.
If you watch this entire movie and you don't laugh at least once, leave a comment under my video. I will help you find a doctor to pull that stick out of your ass.
It's one of the best comedies I've seen in a long time because there's so many moments in it that are so uncomfortable.
That means a lot. I appreciate that. Yeah, that's what we're hoping for.
The Robin D'Angelo one where you gave that guy money for reparations and you got her. She thought it was uncomfortable.
When we had the idea for the film to talk about race, we knew we needed to get Robin D'Angelo. I didn't think we'd get her because I figured she'd be a lot more cautious. Yeah, savvy and cautious. But apparently she has no idea what's happening outside of her bubble at all. So she didn't know who I was. I mean, I gave her my name and she had no clue. So,
wow.
But we kind of went into that knowing what the end was supposed to be. In real time, I was there for about 2 hours and it was an hour and a half of the most mind-numbing conversation where none of that's in the movie because it's just me like fluff questions. And I'm repeating back to her own ideas so she knows that I'm a safe person.
Right.
It's a safe space. And then you got to build to it and build to it and build to it. And then finally you get to a point where you can do something a little weird and she'll probably go along with it. And she did. I mean, you saw we go through we have a whole series of exercises we want to do with her. And she did it. She was game. So that was one of the first things we filmed. So after we got that, we knew that, okay, we have a movie.
Did you go out and see anything in the theaters by chance?
I wanted to go see Am I Racist?
Flash, I did see Am I Racist on Friday. I'm going to tell you right now, I laughed my ass off. It was really freaking funny. I laughed probably more than anybody else in there because I'm surrounded by all this nonsense and to talk about it on a day-to-day basis. But man, it hits hard and it is funny as shit.
And it's not because I'm not waiting for the system. I'm acting as an individual.
I can go get some cash for sure.
So I just finished watching Am I Racist? And I'll definitely recommend it. A really good, thought-provoking movie. Absolutely hilarious. But while you're watching it, you have to keep reminding yourself that this isn't parody, this isn't a spoof. Because if you're familiar with, What is a Woman, for example, you know that he goes into real-life situations and for some reason they don't recognize him. I don't know how they don't recognize him.
On the subject of race, like most normal people aren't walking around every day obsessed with race and tormenting themselves over the question of whether or not they're racist. The default position, I think, of most people is you don't think that much about it. I mean, you notice if somebody's a different race, but you're not obsessively focused on it. So then you have these DEI grifter types who come in and that's the problem they're trying to fix. The problem is that people are normal and not worried about it. And so they have to tell you, like, no, you need to be obsessively focused on this. You are racist. And if you think that you aren't racist, that's all the more evidence that in fact you are racist. And they get you going in this spiral of like confusion and they want to keep you there.
What are you actively doing to decenter your whiteness? Oh, good. Oh man, I'm thrown by the question.
I don't think I'm doing anything actively to decenter my whiteness. What are you doing to decenter your whiteness? I'm just doing the work pretty much every day. I get up in the morning and I just cry softly to myself for like 2 hours.
I'm going to give the floor to people of color. There's none around here, but if they were here, I'd give them the floor.
Eating Indian and soul food every single chance I get.
I'm doing this.
I look into the mirror and abuse myself for 5 straight minutes. And there's actually a timer that I set. And once it goes off, I lay down and cry. I think, well, I should do the work. Maybe tomorrow I'll do it.
I'm here. I'm finding out if I'm racist. So
Yeah. You definitely will, because you're here. Yeah.
I get this question all the time is like, how did they not recognize me or how did they not ask more questions? The answer I generally give, I think is correct, is that a lot of these people live in kind of a bubble. So number one, they're not as aware of people outside that bubble as we assume they are. So me as someone in conservative media, I'm actually outside of their bubble.
It makes me wonder whether people really are in their own bubbles and don't listen to dissenting views, because majority of the situations he walked into, he was not recognized. And it was one time where he was, which was absolutely hilarious.
The media has a blackout on Am I Racist by Matt Walsh and the Daily Wire. Let me tell you about this film, and then I'll read this for you, and I'll give you a little background first. I hope many of you have seen this. You need to go see it. It's not political, it's a comedy. Matt Walsh doesn't come into this film saying, these are grifters, they're racists, they're causing all these problems. He doesn't preach. Masterfully done. The reason why I say it's a masterpiece is, one, it's a funny film. It's a comedy movie. It is a straight comedy mockumentary.
Keeping a straight face, I mean, it helps that I'm an emotionalist sociopath. So that's what I gathered. That's the secret sauce. But also, aside from that, when you're in the room with these people, I mean, in the movie, of course, we take everything we edited together to make a film. But in real time, you know, I'm spending hours in the room with these people. Like Robin DiAngelo, for example, was over 2 hours talking to her. And when you're actually sitting in the room with these people listening to all this nonsense,
which is weird to me because I know everybody in liberal media. I want to know what they're saying. So I kind of assumed that they do the same. They're kind of in this interesting bubble that they don't, not only didn't know who I was, but also I think it was kind of inconceivable to them that they would ever find themselves in a room with someone who doesn't agree with them. I think that just never occurred to them because it's never happened before. Robin DiAngelo appears later in the film, and I think me sitting in the room with her was probably the first time in like 20 years that she's actually sat across the room from someone who doesn't already agree with everything that she thinks.
The big takeaway from it is how much race hustling is such big business in this country. They're exploiting white guilt. They're exploiting those who have a sense of victimhood, those who have suffered trauma in the past. They're exploiting it to make a hell of a lot of money. So it's a very funny movie, but at the same time, it's extremely sad that people are falling for this nonsense.
we wanted to make a good movie, right? That was our first priority. Number one is it has to be good. Go get good footage, good movie. You know, that's the most important thing here. And if making a good movie is not your first priority, then you shouldn't be making them. This has been the baseline problem for conservative art for as long as I've been alive. It's been made by people who often, though not always, don't care that much about the art itself. The first priority for them is not the art form. And you can tell in the final product.
It's a great movie, man. And it's just like What is a Woman, in sort of the same vein of just, it almost feels like satire, but you realize it's not. It's just ridiculous. But you do a great job. You do a really good job of staying calm and deadpanning, because I don't have that skill. I would not be able to hold it together. I would have to start laughing. At some point in time, I would crack. It's just, I wouldn't be able to not enjoy it in the moment to the point where I would go.
That's the thing. You don't enjoy it in the moment because it's really unpleasant in the moment. You're in this environment with these. Yeah, we're making a movie, so I'm aware of that the whole time. Obviously, if the cameras weren't rolling, I wouldn't be reacting the same way. The whole point is to create an environment where the other person feels comfortable saying what they actually think and what they really believe and doing what they would really do. And that means not react, because if you laugh at them, they clam up. You know, if you argue with them, if you show any real skepticism, they clam up. They're not going to tell you what they really believe. And talking about her own daughter, throwing her own daughter under the bus, her 4-year-old daughter, for liking white princesses. I said, well, have you talked about that? She said, all the time. She's talked to her own daughter about her daughter preferring white princesses all the time. And I believe her. Sadly for that poor child, I believe, Kate Slater, that she has all the time. She has frequently lectured her daughter about her racial preferences in Disney princesses. In this, when you're talking to the race hustlers, they've been doing it for a lot longer. The race hustle's been around a lot longer than the trans hustle. And they're pretty good at what they do. And they're usually pretty sensitive to detecting when someone's being skeptical. And if they get that, then they kind of go into a different mode. And they go into this kind of HR, DEI mode where everything's very sanitized, very surface level. So they're not going to tell you the stuff about how, you know, all white people are inherently racist and all. They're not going to get into the really brutal, terrible racist stuff. So we just thought, making this movie, how can we just create an environment where they'll be themselves.
The kookiest version.
Yeah. Which with What is a Woman, all that required was just kind of being a blank slate and asking questions. With this one, it required more of a affirmatively agreeing with them and demonstrating that I'm fully on board with this.
They want white people to hate themselves, and they want black people to hate themselves, to consider themselves powerless and unable to determine how successful they are in life. When you think about it, they want everybody hating themselves, they want everybody fighting and obsessed with race. And there's some nice moments in the movie where he speaks to just some regular people you might consider just by looking at them that, oh, maybe they're racist or whatever, people in biker gangs or things like that. It goes to the South, where you would think if anybody's experienced racism, it would be them. They would be talking about racism more than anybody else. And, you know, the outcome will surprise you. They will not give it away. So I encourage you to go and watch the movie, to support the movie.
One of my favorite moments was you asked Robin DiAngelo what mansplaining was. And then when she gave you a definition and you mansplained her, you corrected her. And she didn't even pick up with what you just did. It's very subtle. I was stretching when I was watching that, just laughing really loud.
The possibility that she was in the room with someone who doesn't already agree with her about everything, it's like unthinkable to her. She couldn't fathom it. The first time in like 20 years that she'd been in a room with someone who doesn't agree with her on everything.
Has she responded to the movie at all?
No, she took down her Twitter page. So most of the people in the movie have taken down their Twitter pages, deleted them.
The jig is up. It really is. Anybody who sees this, the amount of money these people are making, of course they want to keep racism alive. Of course they want to have everybody obsessed with race. Just like everything else, it all comes down to money. It all comes down to the hustle. They don't care how many lives they ruin as a result. They don't care how much lies and false information they put out there, as long as they can make a hell of a lot of money.
The truth is there's not a lot they can say, because if we deceptively edited it, if we pulled any trick like that, they'd happily come out and say that. But they know that we didn't. Everything that's in there is what they said. We didn't change anything. It's all real, and they know that, so what can they say? And especially in Robin DiAngelo's case, she's willing to do some things that are quite embarrassing for her. And number two, you're not even looking at him.
I think he's not looking at us, so it's kind of awkward to look at someone like they're a specimen, if that makes sense. Like the exercise itself is a little awkward.
Well, it's not his job as a black man to make us feel comfortable in this moment.
That's not what I was saying, though.
Oh my God, he moved his fucking number. Well, listen, man, congratulations. It's really funny. It's great. And I think it's a great way to expose how ridiculous some of this shit is. You can expose it by being angry and yelling and arguing with people on Twitter, but to do it the way you did it and just make it a hilarious hour-and-a-half movie is really good. So kudos.
Thank you.
If you like comedy films, you will like this. It's the best thing I have seen the Daily Wire do. And a lot of people have been critical of Daily Wire's, past attempts, but this is where they've really figured it out. They're not preaching to you. They're not telling you what you should believe. They're literally just doing comedy. There's a fight scene where Matt Walsh is fighting. I'm telling you, it's a comedy.
We should always remember that there's something very dark and evil underneath all of this. Beneath the comedy is a tragedy, as I guess is always the case with comedy. But the tragedy here is societal. It's countrywide, culture-wide. And it's that people like this are out there brainwashing susceptible, gullible fools into believing this kind of garbage. It's not very funny in the moment. And if anything, what I want to do, my instinct is not to laugh, but more to argue with them. And that's why it was in both films, we had our director, Justin Folk, on both films, great film director. And he was the one who oftentimes would have to pull me back, because I would say to him, like, I can't do this anymore. Give me another person. And I just want to go in there and yell at them. Because I can't sit there and I can't even pretend to agree. To even pretend that I agree it's revolting to me. I feel wrong doing it. But his point was always this is much more effective to let, we don't need you arguing with them, that we have that on the podcast every day. This is a film, not a podcast. So it's much more effective to let them do it. And so that was the thing that that was always the struggle, was not yelling.
There's the scene that everyone's talking about with the Robin DiAngelo race baiter lady who actually pays money to the black friend Ben of it, and it's really cringy, really funny. And I was in a theater, and I very much made note of the people who were in the theaters. And I saw it on a Friday afternoon, so it was an older crowd, and everyone was white in the theater. And I found myself laughing, and I could almost feel them not wanting to laugh while because there were several kind of those things going on. But it was a wonderful documentary that could almost serve as a mockumentary when you look at it. And it does such a good light of shining on how these people are so obsessed with race at all times. And in the reality, nobody else gives a damn. Normal men don't care. Normal women don't care. And at a certain point, he goes to a biker bar in rural United States, and they're like, who the hell cares? I don't know what's the big deal. And these are the people that would be described as threats and, domestic terrorists or whatever. And these are just people who just want to be left alone and ride their bikes and drink their beer.
Did I directly lie to these people? No. Even the wig I wear for the rest of the movie is comically and deliberately unconvincing. Now, it turns out that it did convince a lot of people, but that is also part of the joke. After all, deception is used by undercover journalists all the time. That's the only way we know that about Planned Parenthood selling aborted baby parts, for example. Deception is used by undercover cops. It's used to catch pedophiles and murderers and drug traffickers. It's not difficult to think of dozens of examples where deception, up to and including outright lying, is used in ways that are rarely found objectionable. Indeed, to take the position that deception is always wrong, which is what at least Burke seems to be arguing, is to say that undercover police work and undercover journalism and all those other dozens of examples simply should not be done. And if that's your view, fine, but I think it's absurd on its face. We were making a piece of entertainment. Yes. But that entertainment had a point, and the point was to expose an insidious agenda and the people who push it. Specifically, in this film, in our first film, we were looking to expose and humiliate the so-called expert class, our self-assigned moral superiors who impose their insane, morally perverse doctrines on us from on high. I know that a movie like Am I Racist this is not Rembrandt we're talking. I'm not saying it's some kind of staggering work of artistic genius, but it is a film, and film is an art form, which is a long way of saying that we approached the film the way we did and used the methods we did for the sake of getting the message across and exposing the grifters, yes, but also as an artistic choice. And I understand that that justification will be very unconvincing to the kinds of people who make this criticism to begin with.
So I posted that little review of Am I Racist on my X account and didn't think anything of it. And I noticed that it was getting a lot of comments. I'm like, oh, cool. Then literally I woke up and again, notification after notification, like going crazy. So I'm like looking at it and it has over 8,000 likes. And I have never had that many likes on any post that I've ever posted on X. So I'm like, what's going on? Then I looked on Matt Walsh's page. He reposted it. So yeah, shout out to Matt Walsh. That was pretty cool.
And it's actually really embarrassing. I got a legitimate secondhand cringe because throughout the film, people almost immediately figure out who Matt Walsh is, or at the very least that they're being pranked in some way, that he's some kind of paid actor or a prank show or a YouTuber or something. Like people kind of get it pretty quickly because he's not subtle in what he's trying to do. But in this scene in particular, and in other ones, it's just kind of embarrassing because he really thinks he's doing something, but the only looks he's eliciting from those around him are of vague concern or annoyance. Like, they legitimately think something is wrong with this man. So at one point, he's playing up his whole undercover persona as a liberal soy boy or whatever, and he goes to have a cry because he's so overwhelmed by racism or whatever. And at this point, pretty much everybody goes like, is that Matt Walsh? Yeah, I think that's Matt Walsh.
So I got served today at the pharmacy, and I'm not saying men can't look like this because please go off, kings, but like, I'm not doing damage to masculinity. I think y'all are when you serve me, when you call me a man, right? Like, I'm not a man. Don't consider me for the pool of men. And maybe the people who are like, oh, masculinity is in decline. Well, stop thinking I'm doing anything with it. I'm not part of that equation. Count me out.
A film called My Old Ass, which apparently is not a Biden biopic, also came out September 13th. It was only in 7 theaters this weekend as part of a limited release. It made $170,000. So it didn't even rank in the box office top 10 this weekend at all, but it has an official Rotten Tomatoes critic score as well, and it has more than 85 critic reviews. Now, if Am I Racist were a bad film, if we didn't succeed in doing what we set out to do in the film, this probably wouldn't be happening. We'd be getting panned by every mainstream outlet. They've done that to a lot of other media and other films that are created by people outside of the Hollywood bubble. We're used to that kind of thing. And usually, if they have an opportunity to rip a piece of conservative entertainment, quote unquote, to shreds, they're more than happy to take advantage of that opportunity. But they're not doing that here. Instead, they're ignoring Am I Racist entirely, as if it doesn't exist.
Let's be clear what's happening in this country. It's Nazism. Republicans are Nazis. You cannot separate yourselves from the bad white people.
Growing up in the 90s, never thought much about race. Sure, you noticed, but never really seemed to matter that much. At least not to me.
Being a white, straight, cisgender man is the top of the pile.
I'm on the top of the pile. That's me. Am I racist?
I would really appreciate it if you left.
I'm trying to learn. I'm on this journey.
Can you please leave?
If I'm going to sort this out, I need to go deeper undercover. If I want to be an ally, I need to look like one.
What is racism?
Martin Luther King said not to judge people by their...
Martin Luther King said a lot of stuff.
Is America inherently racist? What the hell is that?
The word inherent is challenging there. America is racist to its bones. All of the...
So inherently.
Yeah. The entire system has to burn. And I'm not going to even use save this country. This country is not worth saving. This country is a piece of shit.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
They gonna say I'm racist.
Joining us now is Matt, certified DEI expert.
Here's my certification. Where are you guys on your anti-racist journeys? So I'll look around the room and point to who we believe is the most racist person in the room. We want to rename the George Washington Monument to the George Floyd Monument. Would you mind signing it? You will? What do you think about this issue of heteronormativity and how it intersects with the broader structures of racism in society? What's up with white people? What are you doing to decenter your whiteness?
Who's making it the center? Why are they doing that?
What you're doing is you're stretching out of your whiteness. This is more for you in this field. White
folks,
white
trash, white supremacy, white women, white boy, white entitlement, white centering, white silence.
Is there a black person around here? There's a black person right here. Does he not exist?
They gonna say I'm racist, but they call everybody racist.
Hi, Robin.
Hi. And what's your name?
I'm Matt.
Matt. Hi, Matt.
Nice to meet you.
I just had to ask who you are because you have to be careful.
Never be too careful.
They gon' say you racist, but they call everybody racist. Am I racist? Why do you judge by the color of our faces? The racial division just a plan by the matrix. They burn down our cities, then they get caught courageous. Instead of condemning the media, give them praises. Oh man, what is the benefit? When the media ruin our images.